Anakin Skywalker. The tragic philosophy of that celestial expectation stood a human being, raw, brilliant, wounded, and fragile. His transformation from a gifted Jedi to Darth Vader is not just the fall of a hero. It is a slow, tragic descent into darkness, agonizing fracture of a soul. A portrait of how greatness without grounding, power without peace, and love without freedom can consume even the most promising light. This is not a tale of simple good versus evil. This is the story of a man who could not reconcile the voices inside him. Anakin was born into chains, literally and emotionally. A slave on the desert planet of Tatooine, his earliest memories were not of joy, but of survival. Hunger, helplessness, and the constant fear of being owned shaped his subconscious. And yet, even in this bleakness, he radiated something divine: empathy, genius, and raw Force energy that made Jedi Master Qui-Gon Jinn believe that this child was not ordinary. He was the chosen one. But what does it mean for a child who has never tasted freedom to suddenly be told he is destined to save the galaxy? That's the beginning of the fracture. A young boy taken from his mother, placed in a rigid system of ancient discipline, surrounded by masters and councils that demanded detachment and obedience, when all he wanted was to hold on. Anakin's bond with his mother was unbreakable. She was his only anchor in a life that otherwise spun out of his control. When the Jedi took him away, they taught him to suppress his emotions, but they could never erase the deep scar of separation. And years later, when he returned to find his mother dying in his arms, brutalized by Tusken Raiders, something inside him shattered irreversibly. That day, Anakin tasted absolute power through rage. He killed not only the men, but also the women and the children. This was not simply revenge. It was the eruption of a lifetime of repressed fear, sorrow, and fury. The Jedi called for peace, but Anakin's heart screamed for control. Because love, to Anakin, had always been tied to loss. And where love and loss meet, fear is born. Anakin's central fear, the one that haunts him, owns him, is powerlessness. As a child, he was powerless under slavery. As a Jedi, he was powerless to love Padme openly. As a son, he was powerless to save his mother. Every trauma tightened this knot. So when Chancellor Palpatine whispered of powers that could prevent death, of dark secrets that the Jedi had hidden, Anakin listened. Not because he was evil, because he was afraid. He saw the Jedi as hypocrites, preachers of peace who wielded lightsabers, defenders of justice who kept him at arm's length, spiritual guides who demanded the impossible: to love without attachment, to feel without clinging, to serve without asking. Anakin didn't want to rule the galaxy. He wanted to stop losing the people he loved. As Palpatine's influence grew, so did Anakin's internal confusion. He was praised for his power, yet distrusted for his emotions. He was a war hero, yet not granted the rank of Jedi Master. The very order he had given his life to still treated him like a boy. He lived in two worlds. By day, a Jedi Knight, symbol of light, bound by law. By night, a secret husband, a dreamer, a man tormented by visions of Padme's death. He could not be whole in either world. This duality poisoned him. Torn between identity and expectation, love and code, loyalty and truth, Anakin began to see betrayal everywhere, even in his mentor Obi-Wan. The walls were closing in. The idea of the dark side didn't horrify him. It offered clarity, not chaos, control. When Anakin finally pledges allegiance to Darth Sidious, it's not a grand declaration of evil. It's a broken whisper. I will do whatever you ask. Just help me save her. This was not conquest. It was desperation. In the Jedi Temple, when he massacres younglings, yes, even children, it is not because he enjoys it. It's because he believes, in some twisted, tragic way, that this slaughter is necessary. that sacrifice is demanded for a greater future where he won't feel powerless again. That is what makes him terrifying. Not that he became a monster, but that he believed he was still the hero. When Anakin becomes Vader, he doesn't just put on armor. He buries Anakin Skywalker. He locks away the pain, the memories, the love. The breathing becomes mechanical, as does the soul. Darth Vader is not a being of pure evil. He is a being of pure numbness, numb to grief, numb to hope, trapped in a prison he built to protect himself from further loss. But no armor is thick enough to fully silence the past, which is why, decades later, when Luke Skywalker looks into his eyes and says, "There is still good in you," that buried soul stirs, because Anakin was never truly gone. He was just hiding. Anakin represents the most dangerous truth of the human condition, that even the brightest light can become shadow if not given space to feel, to heal, and to be understood. He is the embodiment of potential corrupted not by evil, but by fear, isolation, and emotional repression. He is the voice in every one of us that whispers, "What if they don't understand me? What if I lose what I love? What if the rules are wrong?" And if that voice is silenced instead of heard, it grows into rage. It is not a prophecy, not power, not the force that redeems Anakin. It is love, Luke's refusal to fight, his belief in his father, that undoes decades of darkness in a single moment. Anakin Skywalker dies saving his son, not because he had to, but because he finally chose to. And in that choice, the prophecy is fulfilled, not through power, but through sacrifice. But what the Jedi failed to see, or chose to ignore, was that Anakin was still a child pulled from the dust of slavery, torn from the only home he knew, from the only person who truly loved him, his mother. To the Jedi, he was a tool of prophecy. To Anakin, they were strangers who promised enlightenment, but offered silence in return. From the beginning, he was not nurtured. He was watched, judged, measured, doubted. The Jedi Council never fully embraced him, and Anakin felt it. Even as he trained, excelled, and proved himself in combat, he remained an outsider to the Order, never quite one of them. And within that emotional distance, a fracture began. A deep spiritual loneliness took root. He was surrounded by light, yet lived in a shadow. Anakin longed for connection. He craved affirmation not just as a warrior or a savior, but as a human being. Yet the Jedi preached detachment. They demanded he sever the very emotions that made him human. Fear, love, attachment, desire. To a boy who had already lost everything once. That felt like dying again. The growing silence within. With every year, the gap widened between who Anakin truly was and who the Jedi expected him to be. He smiled less. He questioned more. He began to feel that the Jedi Code wasn't just difficult, it was unnatural. Why should love be forbidden? Why should emotions be feared rather than understood? In these questions, Anakin's inner voice grew louder. But the Jedi didn't answer, they merely warned. In this silence, another voice crept in. Palpatine, a patient shadow, a master manipulator. Palpatine did what the Jedi never dared. He listened. He empathized. He praised. And more dangerously, he planted seeds of doubt, not just in the Jedi, but in Anakin himself. He told Anakin he was powerful. He told him he was different. He told him he could be more. Conflict breeds chaos. As war tore the galaxy apart, Anakin rose to become a war hero, a general, a symbol of hope. But inside, he was anything but hopeful. His secret marriage to Padme was both his greatest joy and his most corrosive secret. It pulled him further from the Jedi. It made him feel like a hypocrite, a liar. But how could he choose between love and duty? How could he betray either without betraying himself? This was the paradox the Jedi never prepared him for. How can I be what they want me to be, when who I am is everything they fear? So Anakin began to hide more than just his relationship. He hid his anger. He hid his visions, dark premonitions of Padme's death and childbirth. He hid his desperation. He stopped trusting the Jedi and started trusting the only one who promised to teach him how to stop death itself. Palpatine, the breaking of a soul. Anakin's world became a storm of contradictions. The Jedi taught peace, yet waged war. They demanded emotional purity, yet ignored emotional wounds. They called him the Chosen One, yet denied him the title of Master. He stood between worlds, neither fully Jedi nor yet Sith, neither child nor man, neither free nor truly enslaved. And then came the moment, the final fracture, when he was asked to spy on Palpatine, his confidant, by the Jedi Council. That request shattered whatever loyalty remained. Anakin no longer saw a council seeking truth. He saw an order, consumed by fear. So when Palpatine offered him a way to save Padme, to end the war, to forge a new order of peace his way, Anakin didn't say yes out of ambition. He said yes out of helplessness. He became Darth Vader not with triumph, but with a whisper. I will do whatever you ask. Just help me save her. And with that, the boy who once dreamed of freeing slaves became one again. A slave to fear, a slave to a lie. Anakin's descent into darkness was not born from malice, but from fear. Fear of loss, fear of failure, and fear of being powerless. His mother's death at the hands of the Tusken Raiders left an indelible scar on his soul. This traumatic event ignited a rage that led him to slaughter an entire village, including women and children, a stark contradiction to the Jedi code he had sworn to uphold. This act of vengeance marked the beginning of his internal unraveling. His fear intensified with prophetic visions of Padme's death during childbirth. Desperate to prevent this future, Anakin sought power, believing that control over life and death could be achieved through the dark side of the Force. This fear-driven quest for power made him susceptible to manipulation by Chancellor Palpatine, who promised the means to save Padme, but ultimately led him further astray. Anakin's relationship with the Jedi Council was fraught with tension. He felt misunderstood and constrained by their doctrines, which emphasized detachment and emotional suppression. His secret marriage to Padme Amidala further alienated him, as the Jedi forbade attachments. This isolation created a fertile ground for Palpatine's influence, who cunningly positioned himself as a mentor and confidant. The pivotal moment came when Anakin was forced to choose between loyalty to the Jedi Council and allegiance to Palpatine. In a moment of profound inner conflict, he betrayed the Jedi, leading to the massacre of the younglings in the Jedi Temple. This act of betrayal was not just a physical assault, but a spiritual one, severing his connection to the light side of the Force and embracing the identity of Darth Vader. Psychologists have analyzed Anakin's behavior and identified traits consistent with borderline personality disorder. His impulsivity, intense and unstable relationships, fear of abandonment, and identity disturbances are indicative of this condition. The constant oscillation between idealization and devaluation of others, especially Obi-Wan and Padme, reflects a profound internal chaos and lack of self-identity. Moreover, Anakin exhibited signs of narcissistic tendencies, believing himself to be superior and destined for greatness. This inflated self-image, combined with deep-seated insecurities, created a volatile-like personality, prone to extreme actions and decisions. Despite the atrocities he committed, Anakin's inherent goodness was not entirely extinguished. The love for his son, Luke Skywalker, sparked a flicker of hope. In the end, it was this love that led to his redemption. In a final act of defiance against the Emperor, Anakin chose to save Luke, sacrificing him-to-be Kimelf in the process. This self-sacrifice was not just a physical act, but a spiritual one, representing his return to the light and the fulfillment of his original destiny to bring balance to the Force. Anakin Skywalker's story serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of fear, the importance of self-awareness, and the need for emotional balance. His life underscores the complexity of the human condition, the interplay of light and dark, strength and vulnerability, love and fear. In understanding Anakin, we are reminded of our own potential for both greatness and failure, and the continuous struggle to find harmony within ourselves. Anakin's journey is a mirror reflecting the internal battles we all face. It challenges us to confront our fears, understand our emotions, and seek balance in our lives. His story is not just about a galaxy far, far away. It is about the galaxy within each of us,